Welcome everyone to virtual episode number 11. Thank you all for joining us. This is the first of our 2021 season. We're back home where it all started at Max's Taphouse. We hope you had a great holiday season. With me today is my good friend, fellow beer enthusiast, fellow wrestling, pro wrestling that is, enthusiast, McHugh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I am more excited than you know to be here. I mean, the beer, of course, it's how we know each other, but it's nice to find another wrestling fan and someone who keeps up to speed with it as much as I do.
I think there's more out there, just nobody really admits, like, hardcore that they're...
Yeah, it is a situation. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but if I have friends come over, I'm like, come over and try to watch Raw with me. Try to watch whatever. Yeah. And as I'm explaining it, they're like, dude, you're really into this.
It's a little strange. This is borderline. Like,
I own it. We both do, I guess.
With us this week, as far as beers are concerned, we have one less beer. We have 5 beers that we haven't tried before from all over the world, and we topped it off with an American straight whiskey from Illinois, McHugh Spirits. So, hope you can join us. I'm going to start with the Struisse Brewers, Rio Brewing. This is going to be a Belgian quad. Going to just go right from the gate.
Let's see what we got here. I don't want to look at... Well, Scooter's great at printing out these just base descriptors and doesn't give too much into it, where I can still right away blindly kind of make these assessments.
Right.
But it's a good little hint into what we're working with.
Yeah, if you're following along, this is the first on the upper left of the beers. You can start in whatever order you'd like. I think for a Belgian quad, I'm getting a little bit of sour.
It is.
More than, I mean, it is a 2012, so.
Yeah, there's definitely a tart, very minimal, like, hint of acetic acid in there, I think. And then also, on top of that, it's just coupled with, like, not overwhelming, raisiny.
Yeah, dark fruit. Like dry fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So tell me how you got into the world of beer as a beer enthusiast. By trade, you are a quality control agent of sorts.
Yeah, that's correct.
He probably has like a really cool badge somewhere, but
yeah, I wish. I think that'd be like a piece of paper that says biochemist or microbiologist. But you'll hear in a second, I do not have that, either of those. So I had no prior brewing experience, no home brewing, anything like that. At the time, I walked into a brewery in Northern Virginia and asked if they needed volunteers. I had seen them ask on Facebook maybe a month earlier, and I'm like, well, I'm doing this Loudoun County, to give hints, I'm doing this Loudoun County ale trail, essentially. It was the day after my birthday, and I went in and asked, and the person who was working there at the time could tell I knew a little bit about what I was talking about, I guess, and could tell I was passionate and interested and just want to learn. And she's awesome. She's still down in that region as a kick-ass head brewer. But so I volunteered. And within 2 weeks of my one-day volunteering on the bottling line, I was full-time. And then within about a week or two of that, my coworker at the time asked me if I wanted to help in the lab. And immediately, I was blown away the second I stepped foot on the production floor and like saw things in action. I fell in love.
Yeah.
And I recently wrote that for a certain scholarship application. They're saying, describe your passion, or how can you describe it? I'm like, it really is as simple as that. There's no other way to put it.
Well, there's something to be said about seeing the entire process all in the same room, from mash tun or to grinder to mash tun to bright tank onto the bottling line onto the skid that it's going out.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
On the loading dock.
Well, and where I was able to kind of climb the ropes and learn all of it. I walked into a company that kind of had a smaller staff. Obviously, they were looking for volunteers, but then I wanted to learn every aspect of production brewing and every part of the process, and how I learned as I was going how quality pertains to each part of that. All those little steps.
How it tastes, how good it tastes, how consistent it will be each time with the recipe, the same exact recipe.
And working backwards to learn at each of those steps in the production process where that can be watched, where that can be applied. But basically I was there for 2.5 years, or not 2.5, a little over 2 years. And then I moved up to Maryland, up to Baltimore, to take a job up here to be a quality control and assurance specialist. And I would say I'm an expert, but with what I've done so far. But I had no background in brewing whatsoever. I never homebrewed. And I like to kind of claim what made me fall in love with it was I worked at World Market, if you're familiar with what store that is. And I kind of took on an unofficial role as the assistant, like, beverage head. And I started taking home a create your own 6-pack a week or every other week. And I just have always thought of, whether it be an alcohol product or an alcoholic product, I know there's passion in it. I know there is craft and there's manual labor, like there's hard work. And I've always respected that, whether it was through beer or if I got into distilling or winemaking or even stuff like glass blowing and pottery. Sure. Like I have a heart for that.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. It's a labor of love. It's a small group of people getting together for the same cause, a small community, and the end result is like, calluses on the hands, and this is my product afterwards.
Well, and you
it's a big draw.
Get a family out of it. Yeah. You do get to see the end result of the fruits of your labor. But before that, I'll be honest, and people ask a lot, where did you go to school to get your microbiology degree or your biochemistry or food science? And my response is, I didn't finish community college to be a classical voice major. Music has always been my first love and passion, and beer has tied that for second.
Well, walk me through a standard day, a common Monday or Tuesday. You hit the alarm and you're out of bed. You report to work. What's one of the first things that you do as a quality control?
So it's checking in on, and it's the first thing every day. You're checking in on the tanks. You're checking in on active primary fermentation. Making sure those things from the last week are still on a daily basis, still doing what they need to be doing, and reacting accordingly if they're not. So that's measuring attenuation every day, measuring the pH, measuring temperatures versus the set temperature on the tanks, and also a lot of microbiology related stuff, general operations, production operations, that is. So knowing with each piece of equipment we have where and what we need to look for and when. And I'm a huge part of that, working with our head brewer as well. And same with packaging, just every department. Sure. It's, okay,
consistency is key.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to work backwards with that and say, okay, well, we know this is a different silo fill, or we know this is a different lot of our pale malt.
Right.
Let's go ahead and look at this. Let's look at the color. Let's analyze the aromatics. Let's analyze the taste-related, like mouthfeel-related stuff. And then look at your brew house performance and everything that goes into that, like making sure you've converted all your starches and yeast tracking and yeast management and health. Sure you're getting the hint already. I could talk about this for hours. Just very, very trying to be briefly scanning the surface of some examples. And in fermentation, it's running forced fermentation tests.
Sure.
So you know what your ultimate degree of attenuation is going to be. So you can see if something's screwed up or stalls.
Right.
And then depending on that test, you can tell if it's a yeast issue or it's a starch issue or all of those. And just, there's so many little things that can be tracked in each process, but it's essentially the overseeing and management of all of these control points and assays, as they're called, just lab tests, to make sure that consistency is there. It's the analytics of all of those things.
Science.
That are, yeah, who'd have thought?
I do science.
Yeah, exactly.
Very awesome.
It's yeah, I could talk.
No,
days.
And I've always wondered, like, when you think quality control, a lot of minds kind of narrow into just how it tastes. Does it taste good or bad?
That's always the first response. It's, oh, so you get to drink beer all day. It's like, no. That is a huge part, and there is a lot of consumption, I will say, but very...
It's just a little piece of the pie right there.
Yeah, well, and it's very structured, I would say, as I very, very thoroughly believe in not leaving the elephant in the room out of discussion when it comes to production brewing, and just that relationship, knowing you make a substance, and then being very productive with the importance of that part of quality assurance and control. And it can be done really well, and there's nothing that can replace that step.
Consistency. Replace just like competitive, like time after time. This is what to expect.
Yeah, well,
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale doesn't change ever. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's what I was saying is the sensory, like. So Sierra Nevada, you have, and people like Boston Beer and New Belgium, they have fantastic lab equipment, top of the line standards based on all that equipment and what they can measure, and they have set parameters for all of that. But still, they are doing, I don't know that I would say dozens, but throughout all their employees, multiple panels a day for all sorts of reasons. Right. And a lot of that it's just differential testing to make sure everything's to brand. And yeah, someone's taste will always be the final, like the most important thing, because again, no one
understands the background.
That, or it's not like they can look at a bottle and say, no, I know for a fact, just because I'm this superhuman that can do all this extra stuff, I can say this is not that SRM, which is a color scale. This is not that international bittering unit. Or carbonation level. So, but it is. It's also why we love what we do. It's beer.
Well, I've moved on to the Fantome, and it actually kind of counters the bit of the sourness from the quad earlier. Actually, really like the malt forwardness and that.
Yeah, there's just like a really delicate grain.
I don't think any bitterness at all, in all honesty. Maybe a little bit of dryness at the end, but
I need some water in between.
Well, let's talk about like the anatomy of a tap room itself. You walk in, and usually in a brewery tap room setting, you walk in. There's usually the bar. People are sitting at the bar. There's taps behind the bar. You're not there. You're back behind. Correct. And so you see what has happened in the midst of a pandemic. It's an emptier tap room, obviously, right now in Baltimore City. But what is happening behind closed doors, next to all the tanks and the hoses and everything like that? Has it, if at all, has that changed your everyday, moving forward?
It absolutely has.
Okay.
A lot of places have been struggling because there are so many breweries. A lot of them are very small scale. I'm fortunate enough to be with a place where our production was absolutely halted quite a bit. But I feel very blessed. I'm grateful to have been at a place where we could at least keep up production. For a little bit, it was harder to get people in with hours. the same way they would, just based on how much beer we're making, how much beer we're pushing out. And it again has kind of come to a lull in the recent rebirth of kind of severity of the virus. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. You have to. Well, I'm going to take a sip 1 second.
Yeah. I'm just reading it again.
'Cause that's pretty good.
I still get, I think I get just about everything that's on here. A little bit of farmhouse funk at the end, a little bit of clove right before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hard one to describe. It's a grain.
I don't eat dandelions on a regular basis, so I don't know what the...
You're missing it. No, I'm kidding. It'll come to me in a second. It's a very specific, like, grain-related, but slightly darker and very dry grain thing.
Yeah. Maybe like a rye seed or something like that. Yeah.
But particularly with issues that we've had to look into, which are great exercises, but for a very bad reason. A huge part of that was buying beer back. And I'm very pleased that I'm with a place that, after Sensory, what I just went on and on about, and that's the name of the game, because of that and comparing things, not only were we able to determine, like, yes, I promise, if this is out of code, regardless of what other people say their codes are, this is what we stick to because we know.
We have a standard.
Well, that and how that applies to our own brands. The build of each beer. And that differs from brand to brand depending on your ingredients. But that was kind of a good step in saying, hey, this is a good check-in.
Yeah.
Or the check-in of that to reevaluate and remind ourselves of what that timeline is for our own product, for our own brands. But also, you never expect you're going to have to buy back that many barrels worth of beer and dump it.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to check in with accountants and ask what's in your basement still, or what's in your walk-in right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you do have to buy a lot of those back, and other times, not so much.
Well, that and just the opportunity to check in brand consistency and aging.
Yeah. Yep. If it's been sitting there and you haven't tapped it in a while, the same beer.
Yeah, exactly.
How's it going to taste in a couple months?
How far past, and having multiple, based on the production we were working with, it's how you have this opportunity to put multiple batches up to one another from different time frames.
Right.
And just the exercise of really looking and reevaluating or confirming that shelf life that you decide on.
Right.
So yeah, it has certainly been tough, and I feel very strongly for all, I guess, creatives and service industry, and just manufacturers.
It's another ripple in the water, like and checking in with you. Like, I know how bartenders are doing. They're not, it's not normal.
Yeah,
we're putting it very softly, but
production isn't normal.
And I'd always like to ask, before it even hits the stores, how is it affecting, everything from the brewing schedule to the bottling line to fermentation to actually doing quality control and stuff like that. I know you're a fan of, completely off subject, but I know you're a fan of mixed fermentation.
Yeah.
And this one, the Wicked Weed it's going to wake you up a little bit, but I really like this one.
So let's see how well you were able to pick up on exactly what I was saying in the description of beers for this.
Right. Oh yeah, I
can tell. I can tell already.
I mean, you think Wicked Weed first, and like I've been there, luckily, a couple times already, and it's just something to. You think Wicked Weed, it is an open fermentation, like completely different kind of beer that you would ever think of, and I think it's a great introduction to people that don't usually drink beer. Maybe they drink like really tannic wine.
Well, and I've always said that and seen it happen with folks who either they are going to drink a macro light lager or are there hops in that? It's too hoppy,
Right,
or
right.
whatever.
And
My
what does
dad
hoppy
being an
mean?
example.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a totally different
Is it
thing.
too
now.
bitter, or
I
is
just
like, I don't think too hoppy? Like, well, you can have something that's super hoppy but doesn't have any bitterness in it.
exactly.
You know?
I just did an article or contributed to an article on that specifically. It's like, what do IBUs mean now? And it's like, anyway, that could be a whole different discussion. But sours, for sure, it's a completely different taste related and texture related thing that people, they may be cool with sour things. And I personally, like, I struggle a little bit, but I always love how they're done and, like, respect it. I'm just a baby and I'm sensitive to acidity, but I do love mixed ferm. I love.
I promise this. I'm pretty sure this is the most abrasive one that we have, but I picked a really good one.
No, and it really is not.
It's got,
again, that's me. Just it's beautiful.
Cherries and like yellow and green peaches. I can get out of it.
It's funny you get cherries.
Yeah,
I like right away got like mango, a touch of pineapple into like peach skin or like nectarine skin. And that's really nice. I wouldn't have even thought right away that it was in tequila barrels. And I think a good thing when you start using oak for sours is it becomes more of just a fermentation vessel.
Yeah.
Or a holding vessel than it does a flavor contributor.
Contributor. Correct.
That's really good though.
Well, we've understood how things have kind of halted on the back of the house aspect. What is your guess? Very open-ended question, but what is your guess on what now? What do you think is going to happen in the next six months to a year in the craft beer industry?
I
no
definitely
wrong answer,
think,
obviously, but
yeah. Well, and it's something I kind of have on the back burner of my mind constantly, just because I'm in what I do, but also just thinking of everyone and the jobs in the future. And I've seen a lot of, just in the local scene and somewhat regionally, closures have not been as rampant as I've thought. And I think because, as we've seen for any of us still being in business and liquor stores as well, it's people want their booze. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. We are essential businesses.
Yeah, exactly. And if that had not been the case, it was enough for us to stay in business. But obviously a lot of debt is going to come with it. But I think even the moment people are able to go and act somewhat normally, where we were over the summer for a little bit, I think even with those restrictions again, it will not be the same as what you would forecast for necessity of capacity and how much you're going to produce.
Yes. Yes.
Because you have your on-site. I mean, for a lot of places, it's a reevaluation, and hopefully it can balance back out for lots of places and all places of your distribution versus your on-site sales. And how, what is that distribution? If it's here, and most restaurants have been able to, which I find really incredible. In Maryland, I'm from Virginia, and from Northern Virginia, I'll say. Always separate.
This week you have to say where you're from in Virginia.
Always. I was born in D.C. But there's never been an instance where you can buy beer or wine from a restaurant that I know of. It's either from a direct, like a brewery, a grocery store, or a liquor store just for liquor.
Off-premise you're talking about. Yes.
So, but that has been very instrumental and important in all of this. People being able to shift towards that, but it still will never be the catch-up of your draft sales at all of these places. So I do think we've all gotten this far. And we're at a point of vaccine, and who knows what the hell else will come along, because it's just been that way.
100%.
But I think there is recovery down the line, and I just hope for, and I'm hopeful for, smaller operations.
Sure. Let's take a little sip and change gears for a minute.
Yeah.
The next one is like pure dessert for me, and it's I'm really excited. Every time Evil Twin comes out with any of their like even more Mexican Jesus or T-shirt Jesus or whatever they do, I'm super excited. So this is like, I could pour this over pancakes in all honesty. I snuck a sip when you weren't looking. It's really good.
That's fine. Well, the first thing, honestly, that I get is like, it's roasted, like very dark roasted coffee that has kind of sat out for a bit in a really good way. I don't mean like an oxidized way.
It's super sweet, but then also has that tannic, like
I don't immediately get sweetness.
Sure.
What punched through was like a smoky type, tiniest bit of molasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the pastry comes in.
For 13, and I'm looking. The
aroma cannot speak for the texture.
Yeah, all I smell, in all honesty, is maple syrup. But for it to be 13% and just drinkable and approachable as it is, there's no like alcohol burn whatsoever.
No, and no.
That's like the new hotness now. It's like people making like pastry stouts and that kind of thing at 10% plus at a clip, and you
get like fusel alcohols and stuff.
Yeah.
This is incredibly well balanced and just very approachable, dangerously approachable. There definitely is the viscosity to it, a bit thicker.
Right. No carbonation to it. Just
no.
Kind of pours like a motor oil.
Yeah. But it's not too viscous. It's not like a gross, or what I would consider a gross, like
sticks to the side of the
Yeah, exactly. Right. And like there's texture to it. It has a definite kind of thicker mouthfeel, but that is, as I said, dangerously approachable.
What do you
and well balanced?
What do you like to do on a day off? You've touched up on music. That's a big part of your life and something you've kind of thrown yourself into that community for. What's a typical day off for you?
Sleeping. No, I enjoy, and this whole year has kind of, I've always been a homebody and just kind of, if I feel like going out, I will, or whatever,
Sure.
But just an opportunity for self-assessment of like, I have to be at home. All right, let's get into habits of like better chore-related things.
Routine.
Instead of rushing
out the door.
Better routine, and
that's a fantastic way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, and not having another option. My thing is I'd come home from work, if I even come home, or I'd bring clothes to change into to work.
Right.
And then like go out a few nights a week. Definitely have saved money. Sure. A lot of us have, with what we have, whatever income we have, I think it's been easier at least to try to put some away. But lately it has been taking up and acquiring all the supplies I need to do little art projects, and really evaluating my music equipment and setting up. One of the things I did, which took all of like 20 minutes, once I'm like, oh yeah, I just need these few things, setting up a situation in my room where it's a no excuses area for music. I have a laptop designated to that area. I have microphones. I have a PA there. I have monitors.
Sure.
And my guitar's hanging right there. I have no option but to go in and play. Yeah. And that has helped a lot. And part of that has also been hiding the remote from myself if my roommate isn't home.
Try not to turn it on. So for me, I try not to turn on the TV.
Go upstairs and play music
before 6 o'clock or whatever, or like try to be out of the house between 12 and 5 or whatever. Just be out of the house. It doesn't matter where you are, but
Yeah, well, and
within obvious safety reasons, but quite a few times I've been like, you know what, I'm gonna go for a walk again in a park.
Yeah, and that's do it. Do
Yeah.
whatever is healthy for you. And where I, on the other hand, am just like the laziest. I'll say this openly. I am definitely someone who just wants to sit and kick back and relax at all times, unless it's going out. I do enjoy like hiking and stuff like that,
Sure.
but I've kind of not really done any of that just to stay safe with the random folks I'm friends with, and this person here, that person there, and
Right.
trying to keep track while I'm going to work every day. But yeah,
And everybody's had like an emotional or even physical punching bag with where they've thrown all their efforts or all their emotions into something, and and it sounds like music has really helped you out through.
Well, that, and more so for the first time in a long time, I am very actively playing on a, if not daily, multiple days a week basis, where I would go through stints in the past of, unless I have a gig I know is coming up, that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't ever seek out gigs because my whole thing, especially during all this, is I'm not going to try unless I'm asked, because I have a full-time job.
Right.
I have been able to keep my job and my pay, and I know, like, musicians need that.
Right. That's very considerate of you.
Yeah, it's no question.
Right.
And that's why I didn't, with curbside and delivery type things, even though people weren't signing up, I decided to say, like, I am going to be the last person ever to take any of those hours, because people need it. But yeah, I mean, I've been more active on a regular basis than I have in many years, actually holding myself accountable to play music. And
that's pretty awesome.
And not revisit, but kind of like working out. It's get back into it and work on muscles, and that muscle of music.
Strengthen muscles, yeah.
Yeah, and accomplishing art projects I've wanted to for a long time. And
well, as wacky as the next beer is, I feel like it's it's been a niche market with beers like this where it doesn't even taste like beer anymore, and a lot of them just kind of stick to the side of the glass.
Started.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to repeat what I whispered.
I thought I'd throw a curveball in there for a purist like you, but
you're not wrong.
The Dewey is pretty delicious. I would imagine myself like on a beach somewhere, and this is pretty delightful. I could maybe add some booze to it.
Yeah, I mean it is really good, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of like raspberry stuff in general, but this
super jammy. It's got just like no bitterness to it whatsoever, and the lactose just takes any kind of.
Again, that could be that could be towards a person who says they don't like beer or whatever. Yeah, it's like, hey, this is beer.
Yeah.
I don't mean to do that in quotation. No, it is really well done, actually.
And it's a whole new genre of beer. Yeah. Like, you know, 10 years ago, a dessert sour or a pastry stout.
Oh, it wasn't.
Weren't even like a thing, and now it's like that's what it says on Tapped, and I guess that's the way it's classified now. But.
Well, it really is incredible that this is beer from the basis of it. Just this is a grain. This is a malt.
It starts off the same way as every other beer. Yeah,
which is really incredible to think about, and just how brewer's yeast or whatever strain of brewer's yeast you're using, it's the same stuff that you can produce. I guess it speaks to the complexity of beer making.
Right.
And just so there's so many options, countless options, and complexity of what you can get from the same 4 ingredients, and then you, with just the addition of fruit,
a little bit of lactose, or you know,
the adjuncts, but also how you can tinker within like those 4 ingredients, and then how you add those adjuncts.
It's like origami, like it's the same piece of paper, but you're like
exactly, and they're endless directions. And this is an example of one where the slightest changes would make this a different product, but I wouldn't recommend changing it because it's actually really
Well,
really
weather
good.
permitting, like one of my favorite places to drink is on my front step. As the Baltimore folk call it, stooping. And
go
I
on the roof.
can't help but notice how many Amazon trucks are up and down the street.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me your most interesting COVID pandemic purchase.
Oh, there have been a lot more than there should have been. Because I'm like, I'm not
For
going out.
everybody.
I'm saving some money.
I can adorn myself with these things, and I don't have to lose.
Oh, let me see. Let me think about that for a second.
I've been way too excited. I don't want to cut you off, but I've been way too excited about these. I gotta take them off, I guess.
Yeah.
These Ric Flair.
No, I can't smell the beer.
These Ric Flair Adidas. It's my personal role model, and I'm 40 years old, and you can make fun of me for thinking that Ric Flair is the best of all time.
Doesn't Rick Ross have those too?
He probably does. So
I feel like I saw
we
that
both
video.
got something common, is what it is. But yeah.
That's hell
But
yeah.
those are mine, and my wife was like, so Ric Flair is, cause she got like the notice that things are coming to our house. And I was like, if not now, then when? And she was like, all right.
Hell yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
What do you think? What's your most?
I bought so much random shit.
I know, like everybody did. Like,
Just
I don't need that shit,
little, which I have been very good about what I have purchased. I'm like, I can actually make a lot of use out of that. I would say, but obscure. Oof. I mean, I've made very valuable purchases, I guess, where there were things that I never even thought to get myself, and like setting up that no excuses little music thing. Yeah. Shit. I bought underwear off of Amazon for the first time.
I don't think I've ever bought it off Amazon before.
And it's funny, one of my coworkers, because normally we'll get stuff delivered to the brewery,
right?
And it's
because you're not home
for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I guess he had gotten within like the same day or the day before, like we both had for the first time ordered underwear off of Amazon or online in general, and it was worthwhile. It's all about the ratings.
It's like instant gratification. Like you can be sitting at a bar, or you can be sitting at your home bar, and on your phone, and the next day you could have new underwear or Ric Flair Adidas Dame 7s.
That's
hashtag greatest of all time.
Yeah, that's a better.
But
purchase.
not
it's better per se, but
dude,
definitely long term. That's good.
I haven't had any need to wear basketball shoes. I think the last serious basketball game I played was sometime in the 8th grade, in the transition out of high school.
Same.
But
same here. Yeah. I played at one time, and I was good for like one season after doing AAU stuff, and then I don't know what happened.
I could dribble behind my back for a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, moving on to like probably one of my favorite parts of the interview that I probably won't be able to experience with any other person. I made a quick rapid fire of wrestling notes and questions for you. So I hope you're ready.
Okay, I guess I'll go into or preface.
I will acknowledge.
Afterward, I will acknowledge my relationship with my fandom and how spotty it is.
That's fair enough. Real easy one. Favorite wrestler?
Right now?
Yeah. You're a Drew McIntyre fan.
Drew McIntyre. Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. Like, currently, yes, Drew McIntyre. But I don't really have much of a past. But we'll get into that. Drew McIntyre.
Your thoughts on post-pandemic, them closing... You can't go to a wrestling match right now, so they have taken over training facilities and empty stadiums. Your thoughts on that?
I was very happy for it to switch to the Thunderdome.
Yes.
I mean, at least a bigger room than the NXT training center or performance center.
It's a gym. It's like going to an empty Marriott or something like that.
Going to the Thunderdome, which was the Amway Center, I guess. Yep. They actually had the opportunity to do pyrotechnics again, and like
So you kind of close your eyes and you feel like you're there.
Well, it just seemed more authentic, even without the screens there, just the entrances.
Sure.
And it's a bigger arena. And the Thunderdome, I mean, I think it's cool. I don't want to know how much legalese is involved in that with, like, what parts, if not all of your life, do you sign away? Signing you're not going to, like, flash yourself.
Right.
Or, like, flash the camera.
Right.
Or, I mean, if anyone would know how to do that and make sure they would screw you over hard if you did that, it would be Vince McMahon.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, All Elite Wrestling, AEW started probably a few months ago.
Right.
With allowing a few folks in
right,
the crowd.
Yeah, and they're all kind of placed out, minus the ones that have already been tested within that circle, and they're around the ring.
Well, and with NXT, I feel like it's always been that smaller room.
Well, it's just
the black mat.
Right.
It's not as odd seeming or out of place for NXT.
And it's even safer now than, football games. I was watching.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching a game today where they let the Titans let in 13,000 people. I was like, I'm not sure if we're in there yet, but like it's not my decision.
How much money do you have to spend to stay on top of the proper management and channels of sanitation? Anyway, wrestling.
That's cringeworthy.
I am pleased with the move to Tropicana Field.
Yes.
And just the Thunderdome. It is what it is. Like, I'm sure that will become a more, not normal thing. I cannot wait, personally, to go to the first live event.
I'm there. I'm 100%
Well,
there.
I went to Raw in D.C. on March 9th, I believe it was.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And that was literally 2 or 3 days before shit shut down. And that was one of the best times ever. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the last SmackDown that was here in Baltimore. Like, and when it was still on Tuesday, and then they switched to Friday. But
Elimination Chamber was that same weekend in Philly.
Yes, yeah. So, favorite era of wrestling as you were growing up? Now,
so that's where it becomes kind of, I don't have many options there or much to offer.
It's a generational thing for sure.
Well, and I just really haven't. It's generational had I been watching my whole life. I've really watched, in retrospect, or in the big picture, quite minimally. But I've gone back now because I have the one subscription service I pay for. I pay for is WWE Network. And it's been cool to go back and watch Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and just, I would say that mid to late 90s era I really like a lot.
So that would be,
but it's not what I grew up with.
Attitude Era.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Attitude Era.
Era.
D-Generation X. Yeah. And absolutely.
Exactly. I like that a lot. I have a lot more.
When WWE was getting ready to buy WCW, and Ric Flair was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And I've watched whatever available documentaries on that.
That's funny, because one of my last questions, we're going to tie all this together, and then we're going to drink all this off air. Many thanks to Few Spirits for providing us the Best American Blend 2020 World Whiskeys Award winning American Straight Whiskey from the great place of Illinois.
Of course we'd cheers, but keep the distance.
This is just like a nice rounded, like beer, bourbon, wrestling.
Yeah. Beer, bourbon, lots of things.
Right.
But definitely wrestling.
Yeah.
I love wrestling. And it has been something.
So I grew up on that. Like I'm a little bit older, but 35 years I think it's been. I was watching wrestling, and it's like Cobra Kai. Honestly, It's so bad it's good.
Oh, it's a soap opera.
It's a male soap opera. What are you looking forward to the most before they even wrestle? Their entrance. like they're just like cheesy like theme music when they're coming down, like, oh shit, here it comes.
The whole storyline. The way I put it, and one of my good friends and coworkers who is very into wrestling as well, he and I will always check in, and it's, as kids, knowing, and I really only watched for a year when I was in 8th grade, I believe. My little brother and I watched SmackDown, and we didn't have the cable to watch Raw, or, of course, none of the pay-per-views.
No, I couldn't either, yeah.
And
it's too rich for my blood.
I took it back up. Hopefully people would think it's been longer, but I took it back up hardly over a year ago.
Right.
And so we'll talk about this stuff, and, like, as a kid, it's, oh, you kind of get the idea that it's fake, but it's the hype, and they're part of the storylines that have to cater to kids and adults.
No, so I remember somebody, I think it was my dad, he sat me down and he's like, look, son, number one, you need to stop beating up your sister. Number two, I regret
in my basement.
In so many words, I regret to inform you that all that shit you're talking about and seeing on TV, it's not real. And you're like, get out of here, man.
Yeah.
I don't believe you. Well, and now, obviously, when you get older, you're just like, okay, this is real, but it's rehearsed.
Yeah, these are definitely athletes, and we'll see. I think the steroid use, or PPE, has performance enhancing. No, PEDs. I'm so used to saying PPE.
The PPEs.
Safety stuff, but I guess that comes into play too.
Yeah.
It's like they actually are athletes. Some of them are clear acrobats. And gymnasts and all that. But as an adult, it's seeing how well you can predict Vince's mind, Vince McMahon's head.
Oh, yeah.
For the storyline. And that's the soap opera.
100%.
And it's so enjoyable. And yeah, it's absurd.
It's so bad it's good.
It's so ridiculous.
It's so bad it's good. I'm wearing Ric Flair socks. I love this stuff so much. And in a pandemic where people are losing their shit, in all honesty, this is the one thing that's
well, it's stuck, which... Yeah. You've been able to, even if you don't like it, it's like, well, shit, nothing else is on. No live sports are on.
For 3 hours on Mondays. You're like,
well, that and...
After Wheel of Fortune goes off, what are you going to watch?
Yeah. Well, that and just I guess in the past year and a half or so, or year, just even the documentaries, the footage you can watch, so much more has become available, and I want to say the past year and a half, with an inside look. Behind the scenes, and that's where you really start to sit back and say, like all of Undertaker's stuff. It's like, holy shit!
I grew up with this guy. I had
it's seeing that variation, between the character, which some people have struggled throughout their entire careers. They struggle with that. Is there a blurred or very definite fine line between your persona and you as a person? And it's just seeing the behind the scenes and the interaction between all of the wrestlers, it's like, it brings a sense of, oh, this is worth, like, they really dedicate themselves to this. It's an industry. It's worth watching, it's a craft, and, knowing that other side, and I think WWE specifically has made that more and more available in very recent times, which is great to see. And it makes me love it even more.
We're going to end with an open-ended question that we're going to answer off air with one more sip of few straight whiskey.
I'm here for it.
But before we get to that question, if you are running out, or if you enjoyed any of the beers that were available here in this kit on the 11th episode, please visit shop.maxis.com. Feel free to email, text, reach out to us if you have any beer questions. Thank you, Michelle, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I leave you with this question.
Let's see.
Did Vince McMahon screw Brett, or did Brett screw Brett? Don't answer that. Don't answer that just yet.
You did it to me.
You'll have to tune in next Monday.
I don't want it to end with my face just like, oh. Yeah, that's tough.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, drink dope beer and say thank you.
Bye, y'all.